Hey everyone, today we're diving into some important updates about DWP payment dates and the government's crackdown on benefit fraud. It's crucial to understand what's happening, especially if you're relying on benefits like universal credit or PIP.
So, let's unpack this together. First off, let's talk about DWP payment dates. You know, it's really essential for financial planning to keep track of when these payments are due.
If you're like me, you might find yourself counting down the days until that money hits your account, right? But with the increased focus on benefit fraud, things are changing, and it's a bit overwhelming, honestly. Now, about this crackdown on benefit fraud, the government is really ramping up efforts to catch those who are trying to game the system.
It's a tough situation because, while we need to protect taxpayer money, it can sometimes feel like innocent people are getting caught in the crossfire. It raises some serious questions about consumer protection laws and how they might conflict with these aggressive measures. It's a lot to process, and I can't help but feel a mix of frustration and concern.
The DWP is targeting specific bank account activities, which is a big deal. They're flagging accounts based on things like sustained activity abroad or if you have savings over £16,000.
It's like they're putting everyone under a magnifying glass, and that's got to make anyone on benefits feel a bit anxious. I mean, just thinking about how many people could get wrongly accused is really unsettling.
So, they're proposing this automated fraud detection system to identify unusual activity.
Sounds high-tech, right? But it also means that benefits recipients could face a lot of scrutiny, and the recovery process for any overpayments could get complicated.
I can't help but feel a little uneasy thinking about how this might affect someone who's already struggling. It's tough enough to make ends meet without having to worry about being investigated. And then we have the banking sector weighing in.
UK Finance has expressed concerns about how these plans might impact vulnerable customers. It's like, yes, we need to prevent fraud, but we also need to protect those who are already in a tough spot.
It's a balancing act that feels like it's tipping in the wrong direction. There's a real need for additional controls to stop fraud from slipping through the cracks, but it also feels like there could be a better way to do this.
Now, let's touch on some regulatory considerations. There's a conflict with the Financial Conduct Authority's consumer duty, which is supposed to protect consumers.
Banks have obligations to their vulnerable customers, and I really hope that these new measures don't compromise those responsibilities. It's a fine line, and it's one that needs careful navigation. Another thing that's come up is proposed information sharing between banks and the DWP. They want banks to provide claimant information, but there are current limitations that make this tricky.
It's like we're all trying to do the right thing here, but it's just not that simple. It makes me think about how connected our systems need to be to really tackle fraud effectively without stepping on anyone's toes. Financial implications are also a hot topic. There could be potential savings for taxpayers with this new system, which sounds good, but we've got to look at the human cost too.
Overpayment statistics due to fraud and errors are staggering, and it's heartbreaking to think about the real people behind those numbers. This whole situation is a real eye-opener about the complexities involved in managing these benefits.
And let's not forget about the safeguards and oversight that are being introduced in this new legislation. They're planning to have independent reviews of how these new powers are used, which is a step in the right direction.
It's so important to keep checks and balances in place, especially when so much is at stake for vulnerable populations. So, to wrap it all up, there are a lot of implications here for benefits recipients. It's a complicated web of regulations, fraud prevention, and consumer rights that we need to navigate carefully. If you're watching this and you're affected, I really encourage you to stay informed about any changes that might impact your rights. Knowledge is power, right? Before you go, if you found this information helpful, please like, comment, and subscribe. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this situation. It's so important to have these conversations, especially when things get tough. Remember, even in challenging times, there's always something to be grateful for. Let's keep supporting each other through this. Thanks for listening.